On last week's episode of Kawabana, we featured a story called The Villagers Without Pinkies. I recommend going back and giving that a listen if you haven't already. It's not very long and it'll get you up to speed on the mystery that we're looking at this week. I'll leave a link in the comments, but to very quickly sum the story up, the anonymous poster shared a story about visiting their elderly grandmother in a village deep in the mountains of Miyagi Prefecture. This person had never met their grandmother before, and this was likely going to be the first and only time because of her age. But soon after arriving at the village, they noticed something strange. Nobody there had a pinky finger. Even the children were all missing their pinkies, and so was their grandmother. One of the local children explains that their pinkies are cut off to protect the village. They're placed in a box and kept at a shrine somewhere up the mountain. But it's forbidden for children to go near this shrine because they will be cursed and potentially die. Now, like most of the stories posted on channel, this was presented as an actual experience the poster had. According to them, there was a village somewhere in the mountains of Miyagi Prefecture where every single villager had their pinky finger cut off at the age of 1, and said pinky was then put into a box and kept in a shrine further up the mountain. But was there any truth to the story? Let's dig a little deeper and find out. First things first, this story was posted on channel on June 18th, 2014. The poster stuck around to answer a few questions after sharing the story, but then disappeared and never returned. Most of the brief Q&A didn't reveal too much more information. The station they mentioned arriving at before driving to the village was Sendai Station, which, as you might imagine, is one of the biggest and most important in all of Miyagi Prefecture. Not a lot to go off there. The drive from the station was maybe 3 or 4 hours, but they claimed to be asleep for most of it and thus wasn't sure either way. Someone wanted them to clarify if the entire pinky finger was cut off or just to the first or second joint. They confirmed that the entire pinky finger was gone, cut off from the base. Another person asked if the pinky finger was gone from both hands or just one, and the original poster replied that they thought it was just one hand, but they couldn't say for certain. A bit off, as you'd think you would notice if an entire village was missing the pinky fingers from both hands. The poster obviously never gave the name of their grandmother's village, just that it was deep in the mountains. Someone asked if they weren't perhaps speaking of Yoshida village, because if we're speaking of creepy Miyagi villages, then it has to be Yoshida. For those who have never heard of Yoshida village, it's said to be another phantom village, much like Sugisawa or Inunaki. It's said to exist in the mountains of Miyagi Prefecture, and one of the villagers living there cursed it during the Second World War, leading to everyone who lived there dying of mysterious circumstances. Now it's abandoned and said to be full of evil spirits. Some people claim that Yoshida village, or at least the remains of it, can be found close to Mount Kamakura, roughly 20 kilometers outside of Sendai. Nobody is quite sure where, however, and nobody has ever been able to find it or even prove that it really exists. So, if this channeler arrived at Sendai Station on their way to their grandmother's village way out in the mountains and had to take a rental car to get there, maybe this village could actually be Yoshida. Of course, none of the details of the legend match up, and the original poster also refuted it, saying that the pictures they could see on Google Images looked nothing like their grandmother's village. Most images of the supposed Yoshida village appeared to be in a wide open space, whereas their grandmother's village was very much deep in the mountains. So, if this village wasn't the mysterious Yoshida, what exactly was it? The original poster disappeared after this comment and was never seen again. No further information came to light, and people were left to decide for themselves whether the story was true or not. After all, there was nothing supernatural about the story. It could, in theory, have been true. The scary part of the story came from an entire village chopping their pinky fingers off as soon as they turned 1. It seems unlikely, but there's the potential that maybe, just maybe, it was real. People quickly drew comparisons with Kotoribako, which came out a decade earlier. Kotoribako, one of the most famous stories to come out of Channel, features a cursed box in which children's pinkies are stored. However, the Kotoribako is used for evil, whereas the boxes with pinkies in this story is supposed to protect the village. It's only if children go near them that they will be cursed and then potentially die. Was there some sort of connection between the boxes, or was the latter story merely influenced by the first and much more famous one? The thread mostly died after the original poster disappeared, but over a year later, someone else returned with some interesting information. This person claimed to be a Miyagi local and stated that there were no villages like that described in the story anywhere in Miyagi Prefecture. Much of Miyagi, at least where people live, is a large flat plain around the Sendai area. A quarter of the land is made up of national parks, and the majority of the mountains line the borders with other prefectures. However, even in those mountains, no such village the size of the one in the story existed, or so they claimed. Nobody at all lived out there, and this commenter basically accused the original poster of showing their ass, creating a story to capitalize on the after effects of the 2011 tsunami that also affected Miyagi Prefecture. "This is the thing that hurts the most," the commenter posted, upset that people from outside the prefecture kept making scary stories up, even though they'd never even visited the area themselves, which this user felt was clear by their description of a village that didn't and couldn't exist. They even accused outsiders of being responsible for the Yoshida village story as well. Of course, even if this commenter really was a Miyagi local, it's hard to say they would know every single little village in the prefecture, and where they might or might not be located. They claimed that no such village could exist in the mountains, but how could they know that for sure? However, the same commenter then ended with, "But the Tashiro Pass," hinting that of all the scary stories people have made up about Miyagi Prefecture, that one perhaps did actually frighten them. And maybe, just maybe, there could be something out there. Could the grandmother's village have been somewhere near Tashiro Pass then? After all, Tashiro Pass is about a 2-hour drive from Sendai, and the original poster claimed to be asleep for much of it, and was quite young at the time. The infamous Yamanoke, another famous story to come out of Channel, is also said to be located near Tashiro Pass, and it's quite famous as a mystery spot. Why's that? Well, a self-defense force plane crashed there in the late 1960s. The pass used to be used extensively by smugglers. It's closed to traffic entirely during the winter, and outside of those times it's still unpaved and dangerous to drive through. Large vehicles are forbidden entirely, and being so far from civilization, it's both dangerous and creepy. There are said to be numerous monsters lurking in the mountains out that way, mysterious caves that you might never find your way back out from, and perhaps even a secret aircraft facility testing out what locals would claim to be UFOs. Could this mystery village have actually been somewhere near Tashiro Pass then? After all, it's deep in the mountains, it's about as far away from Sendai as you can get and still be in Miyagi Prefecture, and it's an area known for weirdness. But it's unlikely. We can see from Google Maps that most of the area is barren, and you can zoom close enough to see individual fallen trees. Even if we assume this entire village is located in a forest somewhere, in addition to the shrine, there should be at least some evidence of it in the form of rooftops, gardens, any type of open space or road. But there's nothing out there, and the nearest houses are quite some distance away. The most likely answer, at the end of the day, is that the story was simply made up, like the great majority of scary stories posted on Channel. The story mentions that the children in the village found it strange that the original poster still had their pinky finger, and that not having one was the natural state to them. This assumes that these children have likely never seen people outside their own village before, and it's hard to believe that an entire village in this day and age would have no TVs, no magazines, no newspapers, no media of any sort whatsoever, where these kids would be able to see that everyone else in the country still has their pinky finger. It's a little much to take at face value, and much of the story starts to fall apart under close scrutiny, and the original poster's subsequent answers before disappearing. Maybe the original poster became interested in the area because of the wealth of scary stories that come out of Japan's northeast. Maybe they just picked a prefecture at random. Maybe they really did visit there once and decided to create a fake story out of it. There's no way to tell, but with the evidence we have on hand, it seems unlikely that this village where everyone is missing their pinky finger exists. At least, not as the original poster described it. But what do you guys think about this one? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.